Thank you all and enjoy the webinar.
Debbie, thank you very much. And so I have a little confession to make. I was working with a central bank, and it was the first time that I met some records managers, and they told me that they don't want anything to do with data management because they only deal with information management. And I I was a little bit flabbergasted, and I had a very negative feeling about records management from that day. But since I've spent more time with AI, and since I was able to come and present and talk at RIMPA, and I even heard some of those comments, I think you actually challenged somebody to say, you got to get involved and don't just sit in your records management field.
I did.
It was a lovely challenge, and I must thank you so much. And to anybody, I found RIMPA to be phenomenal. I've never attended a conference, even a Microsoft conference, that was so energetic. I saw Anne running around. I could hardly talk to her, but they did a fantastic job. It was in Melbourne. I think they had a special anniversary this year. And I was blown away by the level of speakers, the attention to data, the content on AI. Everybody's talking about it, we know that. But so I think this world has changed us all. We all have to understand things about records, information management, data management. We have to come together. And I think, Anne, you also run a consortium of people that are like-minded in that journey. So we'd love to hear about it. And thank you so much for allowing us to attend RIMPA. We really enjoyed it, both Veronica and I, and we had a fantastic time. Thank you.
Pleasure. We were glad to have you there. It was amazing.
Thank you.
So thank you for that introduction. I'll get started if you like. I'll start sharing.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Bear with me. I'm just, tell me, can you see that?
You can see it. We can see the date. We can see the live, the show. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Howard. Thanks so much for having me. And so I'm just going to explain my accent. So you say Dama, we say Dharma. So we say data. And so if there's anything that you're not sure of what I'm speaking about, please let me know. Howard's going to manage the chat. And if I don't see, and which I probably won't, because I'm sitting on a laptop screen. So Howard's going to manage the chat. I'm more than happy to be interactive, and please feel free to interrupt me as we go along. I'd rather that than wait at the end. And as I said, please feel free to interact with me throughout and ask questions, and we can go through it that way. Just to carry on from, not from RIMPA Live, but you mentioned about the consortium, Howard, which I'll bring up, which is the Global Information Consortium. When I speak about information, I'm speaking about information in all its I'm going to call it its genres. So we're talking about data, records, archives, libraries, content, knowledge. I'm sure I've missed them, but all of the above. And the consortium is a really great display of that, where we've got global organisations from all those genres meeting together to have a bigger voice. And I think we all must agree that we've probably all got very similar issues, whether we're in data, records, information, knowledge, it doesn't matter, in the sense of, about the value of what we do, and society and the community accepting what we do as being very, very important. So I think that's the message. They're the main objectives of the consortium. We would love Dama to be a part of the consortium. We have been speaking to your head office in the US, Howard, to try and help that along with Peter Aitken. And look, it's a new organisation, the consortium, so we understand people's reservation or hesitation to join immediately. I mean, we need runs on the board, which we're starting to do. So the first thing that's coming up with the consortium is about creating a central hub, a portal as a resource hub. So, I'm sure that Dharma are doing things, and RIMPA are doing things, and, ARMA and all these Karma in Kenya and are all doing, yeah, and we're probably doing the same things and reinventing the wheel on numerous occasions when we could share these resources instead of reinventing the wheel, basically. So that's one of the first initiatives that are coming out of the consortium. Anyway, that's what the consortium's all about.
And
By all means.
I'm on the DMBOK version 3 editorial board, and one of the things that we've noticed is trying to not put things into the DMBOK that should live in other box. And so we're trying to create a platform where we would bring on people like yourself to talk about records management, and we would say, okay, for more detail, please look at that area, because we can describe it, but we can't describe the level of detail. So they've actually asked me to reach out to a few of the people. So I will be contacting you, and we'll connect up in terms of
that would be an absolute pleasure. Platform.
Yeah.
Pleasure. We have a great relationship with Dharma in here in Australia too. We're very fortunate. So Rimpa and Dharma, we have a real, those people that said why they need to understand records management, or why records managers would say why the hell we need to know about data, need to be, gone. See you later. Because
that's what
here
I thought,
in Australia,
but I couldn't say. I was like,
no, ridiculous. So here in Australia, the Dharma and the Rimpa connection or collaboration is really important, and we're very lucky. We both know that we need each other, and we cross over with each other, and we have very similar issues and challenges and that sort of thing. So we're more than happy to work together. So yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up, that I certainly don't share that opinion at all, as you already know. As I said in that panel, Howard, get off your backside and get out of there and work yourself out. It's your own worst enemy if you don't sit back and let it all happen around you. So I will get started on the presentation. I want to talk to everyone today but about the soft skills. And when I refer to the word information, as I mentioned earlier, I'm referring to all the genres that I just spoke about. So it's not just about records management. This applies to data and knowledge and archives and libraries and so on and so on. So that's really, I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that the word information I'm using very generically. Just a little bit about me. I don't know if Howard said, I've got the thing over the top, but I'm very fortunate. I've got a great job as being the CEO of Rimpa. And this has only happened in the last 7 years. Pre to that, I'm actually a subject matter expert. I was a consultant in this field in the records management industry for many, many years. Had my own company. Pre to that, worked in government, as in like an employee of government. So I've had, started off at the bottom, the typical story. Started off at the bottom and worked to the top. I think that's really important. And as I said, the last 7 years, CEO of Rimpa, an amazing job. I love it. And I love the challenges, and I love the diversity in the role that I have, because it covers everything. And talking with people like yourselves in South Africa and people all over the world, I couldn't be more fortunate than having this role. But I'm very passionate about information or records management, and you'll hear that as you'll understand that as I go along, how passionate I get. So that's a bit about me. So yes, I am an SME, not just an administrator in this industry. I really want to talk about, as I mentioned, unlocking the value of information, and why does this matter? Like, why does it actually matter? So it's no longer, I'm just going to move you guys out of the way. Apologies, sorry, I've got you sitting there. It's no longer a back office function, and I think AI has really opened that up. And you mentioned that, Howard, very briefly, that I'm a little bit tired of talking about AI in the sense of what prompts to use, what tools to use, and all the rest of it. I know, and I'm over that, and Rimpa are over that too. We're starting to this year. We're focusing more on about the governance and the importance of the information that AI is using, and how transparent. How is it auditable? Is it transparent? Is it accurate? I mean, that's the most important thing, as we all know. So from an AI point of view, we're not a back office function anymore. I've got people here in Australia, and I don't know if it's happening in South Africa, but we've got people in Australia worried that AI is going to take their role. And again, I say to them, get off your backsides and get out there and work out that that's not the case. It's actually making your role more valuable. Instead of sitting around feeling sorry for yourself, do something about it, is my opinion. But and I really do believe that digital government, it's on so it's information. We're no longer the back office function. Government is fully digital, and it's all about service delivery. And I mentioned about accountability, legislation, and the procurement scrutiny and so forth. It all relies on effective information management. And I'm sure in South Africa, it's central to your service delivery. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you, Howard. And obviously it's trust in our institutions and regulatory confidence. I am professional. The professionals are critical. And we here in Australia, I don't know about South Africa, we're a bit of a niche market. So we're not in abundance. There's not what I would call thousands and thousands and thousands. Well, we've got lots of members, sorry, but I shouldn't say that. But I'm talking probably even at that high level. I wouldn't say that there's an overabundance of information professionals that can actually run this. We had a very bad time here in Australia. Forgive me, I do tell stories a lot. In Australia many, many years ago, when I first started in the industry, that records management, I'm going to use particularly, was basically the dumping ground for people that were on work cover. So here in Australia, if you hurt yourself at work, you go on some sort of light duties, and they would put them into the records management office because basically everyone thought that was the place to go because it didn't matter. Basically, it was basically the place to die. Let's call it that. That the old records management was in the basement or, down in the dungeon, as we used to call it, and didn't matter. That's definitely changed. I'm talking now, that was 30 something years ago. It's definitely changed. But we still don't have an abundance of people waking up every morning and going, I want to be an information manager in some shape or form, which is sad. And our courses, due to business purposes over here, are very limited. So we have a lot of courses, university courses here in Australia, that are combined libraries, archives and records. And not necessarily getting the pickup because they're not getting a lot of students. The university running as a business are closing them down. So that's one of RIMPA's objectives, to work with the universities to keep that going. So I just wanted to give you an analysis or a comparison to how it is here. Move on. Thank you. So it's still seen.
If I could ask,
please.
And one of the problems we've got with the Dharma CDMP, and the reason we don't call it Dharma is an Afrikaans word for woman. So
okay.
So
that's good to know.
We go for Dharma. But anyway, we have a problem with our CDMP that it's not recognized by universities, so we can't get it in as a national qualification. I don't know what it's like within Australia. Did you get around that in some way? Are you linked to a university? How is that connection?
Yeah, it's the same here, Howard, as well. There's not a lot of, and this is where we're working with DAMA, I'm going to say, sorry, working with DAMA here in Australia, because there is no real courses that focus on data as such. Okay. And don't incorporate it. And that's a major issue for them as well. So I know Andrew's, I'm not sure if he's online, but I know he's working really hard from an EDMA perspective to incorporate that and get more. And then the government they've got lots of schemes here about, they're one-off schemes. How are they going? Right. We're going to put a whole lot of money into training into the data space, but they're not trying to incorporate it and embed it into that, the higher education space. And that's a concern to me. One-off things don't last, as we all know. Yep. So, the problems we're facing, and we all face, this is not just, it's Australia and South Africa. I think I am still seen as that compliance focused, we're the ones that tell you about, like, you're naughty and you need to do it this way and no one cares. We can be quite often reactive and operational, which I really begrudge. And I know there's a lot of records or information managers here in Australia that do tend to sit back and only react when there's a problem. And that's a problem. That's an issue in itself. Still based paper or system bound. You don't probably have that in the data side of things as much, but from a records management, still perceived as that paper based occupation. And we do here in Australia, separate from data and the digital and the AI initiatives. It's not collaborative. It's not deemed as one yet, I don't think. And our government are treating them very separately. And that's why we're all working together to say that's not the case. But organisations, we all need something different. And that's what I want to talk about today. This is this is RIMPA's 5-step framework for unlocking the potential. And it's really based a lot on your soft skills, more so than your technical skills, which I think is so important today. When I first started in this industry, it was all about whether or not you'd graduated from your courses and you got a diploma or a master's or whatever, and you knew all the technical stuff. No one actually asked me when I went for my first job whether I was any good at project management, whether I was any good at communicating, whether I was any good at marketing, or those sorts of things, which I think are so important for our roles, or just as important as knowing the technical side of it. So that's what I'm talking about today. I think it's really important that you know your organisation, and I'm going to talk about each one of these individually. Building trust and credibility, so important. Education, and the last two is about creating that measurable value, which I think we've lacked here in Australia primarily. I don't know so much in South Africa, but we've lacked to be able to demonstrate the value of information.
I think it's more obliging.
I think you're right. And working with the Global Consortium, I think I'm hearing that constantly, which is why we want to have the bigger voice collectively. And then the fifth one is about, as I mentioned, communicating with influence, which is really important. I think that and I think it's in all the information management genres. I think it's all of us have been renowned for not being really good at communicating. We're very good at sitting back in the back office and doing our thing, and we're very good at doing our thing, our technical side of things. We're not very good at sharing about how important that is. And I think we're getting better at that, but there's still a lot of work we can do. So know your organisation. So it really starts with how well your organisational intelligence. It's so important that you as an individual or professional or practitioner, whatever you wish to call yourself, are fully aware of what your organisation does. And records people or anyone in information management tend to think that they know it all, because we deal with data and records and information across the organisation. And records people probably more so. And I'm going to say that because we open, traditionally open everyone's mail and read everything and classify it and put it to the right files and taxonomies and classify all that sort of stuff. We do all that in retention and disposal. And we feel that because we do that, we're really great. We've actually got no damn idea. So, and that's was proven when you get out of that office space where I said we open the mail and go out and start to talk to the organisation, you understand that there's a lot more in the business than what you actually know, or what you think you know. It's really important that you understand the mandate of the organisation, the legislation, and if there's a public value, if you're working in a public, in the public sector, it's really important. I don't think we've been good until recently. This has been really important about identifying our critical information assets. Records managers tended to, until recently, everything was the same. So there wasn't anything that was critical or more value. We treated everything the same. We retained and disposed of everything in the same way. That's certainly changed over the last 10 years. We've been taught now to look at things with value, which I think is so much better. We don't have the time to look at every damn record, down to, the single little invoice and how important that is in comparison to, the strategic direction of the organisation and planning and policies and those sorts of things. So it's taken a different shift, but whether the people have taken the different shift is another thing. So, and that's really important as well. So I think the legislation is suggesting we need to look at the critical information assets and deal with them more, but whether the people are is another story. And I'd be interested to hear if anyone has experience in that in South Africa. It's really important that we understand the workflow that happens in your organisation and the decision-making points. And you importantly need to align anything we do with data and information to the strategy, and not just what we want to do. So understanding who we serve, and I use the word serve because they're customers and we serve them. And another thing, I've had lots of staff that have had to explain that the people that come and speak to us are our customers. They're not just our colleagues. And we do serve them in the sense of that we offer a service. And I think that's really important to understand that. So why information exists and how it is used. And it provides, knowing your organisation provides you with a great foundation for all the things I'm going to talk about, the next 4 steps, basically. Is there any questions?
Yeah, and we in the DMBOK, we refer to that and we teach as vital records. I'm assuming critical information asset is broader, but
same thing.
Vital records is how to continue your business.
Yep.
Maybe
absolutely. and it's got a couple of meanings. Vital was the word used up until about 5 years ago here, Howard. Now they're called critical or high value records. Because vital had a bit of a term, not just to put it in perspective here in Australia, the definition was if they're vital, a lot of people were thinking that's because they were the only copy or the only record. And so they were saying they're vital because that organisation was the only one that had that record in place. So we're talking probably in the paper environment primarily. We've now changed it to critical and high value. So but it means the same thing. So please, I agree. Yeah, we're on the same page. Some of the things that you need to, if you do go out and speak to your business, not if you should go out and speak to your business, not if you do, you should do this, is from a records management point of view, even from the data, we're finding these are some of the things we're finding. Retention schedules are disconnected from operations. So we're saying, records managers are saying we're going to delete or we're going to dispose of that in 7 years, and the business are saying no, you can't do that. Right now, some of them say, and I'm sure you have this in the data space too, we want to keep it for just in case. Right. We want to keep everything because it's cheap now. Storage is cheap. We want to keep everything. Well, that's all well and good, except it puts your organisation at risk. In Australia, if the longer you keep it, well, as long as you keep it, it means it's susceptible to legislation such as what they call to right of information and freedom of information, which means we have to, in the public sector, expose that if it's requested. Right. So if it's not there, it's legitimately been disposed of legally, means it cannot be exposed. Put it that way.
And demanded, and they can't demand it from you either.
Correct. So they're disconnected from operations. So I don't think the retention schedule, it's all well and good. We've got them and no one looks at them ever again. And then we realize the business has changed. Big one that in my time when I was consulting, policies were all written, and we spend a whole lot of time, all of us, don't we, writing policies. They're never damn well embedded in the organisation. Like some people don't care, guys. They just don't care about the policies. It doesn't impact what's in it for me. And they're probably not enforced to, it's not mandatory and those sorts of things. So policies are not embedded. There's a lot of systems out there that are implemented without governance. And I can't tell you how much in Australia, here in the public sector, forget about private sector, but the public sector, where people are just downloading or uploading systems and using them without any interaction with the IT area or records area or the data area. And so we've got all these rogue systems, carrying data or managing data that no one knows about. Right? So they're sitting siloed and without any governance, and major problems. We talked about the value, as in you said about the critical or the value. We talked about information values. Yep. Those, yes. There's not a lot of understanding of that. So you know what? Everyone thinks that their records are the most, or their data is the most valuable in the organisation. And that's fine. And that's great that they think that. But unfortunately, that's not the truth. So we need to have a good understanding of the value. I don't know about you guys, but we had a lot of, when I've gone around and spoken to, no one wants to own anything. You know why they don't want to own it? Because that means they're responsible for it. Information. So ownership's been very unclear. So you start doing information asset register and you start to say, Howard, this is your information, your area. You say, oh no, but they use it over there as well, so they can own it. Right. And I would have got that many times. It's ridiculous. Information management's introduced too late into any projects. So a big push from a RIMPA perspective here is to make sure that IM is at the start of any project. It's involved, it's sitting at the table when the project is initiated. It's so important. A lot of the times projects commence and there's no consideration to how the information about that project or involved with that project is going to be dealt with, and whether it's even to be kept. And at the end of projects, the poor records manager, they turn to project management, goes, here's all the stuff, guys, do what you want with it, right? And it's done and dusted. And it's not even in the right, they haven't classified it correctly. It's just not, it's not manageable. Over-reliance on technology. How often have you heard that, that system's the answer, that's going to be the answer to all our prayers? A system is just a tool, the same as AI. It's just a tool. And if our information or our data that we're putting into or using with this tool is inaccurate or not trustworthy or inaccessible, the technology is useless. So, and if there's no governance around. IM is perceived sometimes as administrative and not strategic. I have had that many debates with executive management groups about this, that where IM sits, and I usually win. I've got a fairly forceful way of putting this across when I sit in an executive management team meetings. But you know, it's still, as I mentioned earlier, in Australia, that, you know, that down in the dungeon, down at, or back office sort of administrative function that gets done. No one really, you know, there's people out there, they do their job, and no one really understands the value of it. Sometimes poor alignment to legislation and the mandate of the organisation, and information managed in isolation, major. And you would have from, not you would, we all have it. We experience it. The data's sitting over there and managed separately, and this is what we're having, and the records are managed separately, and there's a connection, but not just that. I'm not saying they're managed separately from an organisational point of view. As I mentioned earlier, people are putting rogue systems in. I can't tell. There's a story. I spoke to a gentleman one day and about what he had as his own information, and he wouldn't talk to me because he said the information was his. And he was an engineer in a local government. So here in Australia, 3 tiers of government. Local government is the most diverse area of local government. They sort of covered the roads and community services and planning and building. So it's a fairly diverse business. And he was an engineer in that space. And I said to him, he had plans that were really important. They were plans that they were critical plans. They were the only copies again. And he refused to talk to me as a consultant to tell me that he even had them. He had his own system. And when he went on holidays, no one else had access.
Sure.
So that is an extreme example of an isolated use of information. But he was let to do that because he'd been in the organisation for 35 years and he knew it like the back of his hand, and management let him do that. And unfortunately, when I went in and explained what the risk of that was, it took a lot, and he obviously wasn't a big fan of myself, because he had to then start sharing his information, which is a little bit unfortunate for him. But that's just, it's an extreme story, but it's a true story, and I think there's a lot of those around.
And sorry, Anne, and that's
Howard.
but I'm sure you've got the same problem as us, but the quantification of information value and the expression in terms of rands and cents or Aussie dollars. That's, I mean, we're battling with it. I even heard the CFO say to me, Howard, I'm so tired of those numbers because they're just funny numbers. They made up numbers, and it's amazing. You guys call yourself data people, but I don't know where you get the data to define that value. How are you managing that?
Well, talking with James Price at some stage in the next few days.
Yes.
RIMPA are working. So just to give you a bit of background there. So 2 years ago, we had a hackathon about the value of information assets. And it was really, it was an eye-opener. Believe me, they didn't come up with a solution. So I don't have one for you all today, I'll be honest with you. But it certainly opened up. James Price is doing a major from Experience Matters, a company here in Australia. He's doing a major research project that is in that space. So we want to be able to put it on. We want to be able to include information in the P&L, in our profit and loss, and on our balance sheet. It has a true value. I mean, we can. You're right, Howard. I've had that conversation. I worked with an organisation that burnt down. This is many years ago, before digital backup, or digital was everything. Everything wasn't digital at that time. So the whole place, it was a council again, a local government, burnt down to the ground. Bankstown City Council, many years ago.
Sure.
They're still paying penance for that. I think it's 25 years later, right? They lost so much historical information and data that they still to this day cannot truly give a true story to anyone built in a building or planning, a local planning environment. So if you want to create a new building and a particular piece of land, they can't go back much further than 25 years ago. They don't have the records. And as you can imagine, that can cause issues because historically that piece of land may have had, some sort of safety issues or whatever. I don't know enough about building to explain, but I know that there's been problems. They did have some digital systems, and just for your interest, I'd be interested to hear, what do you think was the very first system they had to get back up and running? this place burnt down, so nothing was available, and they had some digital. So 25 years ago, what do you think was the very first first system they had to get up and running?
Probably the Exchange or the SharePoint or the Exchange
No.
system.
No, that should have been, which is what you're saying. But so they're repositories of information. No,
Yeah.
the first system that they got put up and had to get up and running was the payroll system. And the reason for that was the people wouldn't come back to work to help clean up unless they knew they were getting paid.
Right.
How bad is that? The repositories, the information repositories were about fourth down the line, Howard. So they were more interested in the money. So this is what I'm putting about the value, about bringing up the financial type systems. So payroll, the debtors and the creditors, that sort of stuff, the accounts receivable and the accounts out. So they had to get all those back up before they actually put the information repositories back up. And so that just demonstrated that it was fourth or fifth down the line. It didn't have the same value as that you owed the council $1,000 in rates. Right. And this is where I'm coming from. We from what your question is, it's so important that it becomes an asset, a real asset, a valued asset of the organisation. So long story short, we're working with James Price as well in that project, Howard, to do that and to start. And I think if we all work together, we can do this and get it on the profit and loss. We have the accounting.
What I've battled with so much is that we can define a value and we can use these things, but it's also convincing the CFO to accept that technique of value. And because there's challenges within GARP and the accounting practices, so I think we've got a few hurdles to get over before they say, okay, I buy this and it's going on to my P&L.
I agree. So in part of James Price's research, we've got our accounting standards people on that research project.
Okay.
So
nice.
they will set the stand if they agree and they are fully on board with this. If they agree, they will set the standards, and that will be the standard. It will be legislated. So I'm not. That's not going to happen overnight, everyone. I wish it could, but it's not, because I want to do things now. I don't want to wait. But we're going to have to wait and do this properly. So it will be. But we're very fortunate. James has done a great job in getting those people involved, and that's really my recommendation to you in South Africa would be to have the same involvement from the equivalent body that can help you get that through. Because if you don't, what you're doing is, and again, like you said, it's useless, really. So building trust and credibility, we could talk all day, Howard, you and I, and not do this presentation at all.
There is somebody else who asked a question. I'm sorry about this.
No, don't be silly. I'm more than happy.
Rob
It's really
Jackson
important.
asked, what changed after the building was restored? Was there any change in behavior or?
After what,
Rob?
sorry?
So there's a question, Rob. He said, what changed after the building was restored?
So they went, okay, so the building was restored, yes. So Bankstown City Council built again. As I said, I think it was actually closer to 30 years ago they did this happen. They went fully digital with full backup. They have a very right now and have since then importance in in data and information management overall. They spend a lot of money in that space, but they learnt the hard way. Right. So, they're very happy to share their story, by the way, with others to say, don't let this happen to you, because it happened to us. And it's, as I said, they're still paying penance for that 20 or 30 years later. They still don't have enough information to be able to be 100% accurate when they're giving out advice in that building space. So So they learnt. They did learn. They didn't go back to the same, which a lot of people do. I know.
We actually talked about it in the data governance. We actually encourage the data governance people to find and understand those perfect storms that make people sit back and say, we've got to change. And then they repeat that one as often as possible. You say, you don't want to look at the policy, well then we're going back to that, the house that burned down, or the...
And call this fortunate or unfortunate, but I sort of grab onto anything I can. But remember, think about here in Australia, we have lots of cyclones and hurricanes, that sort of thing. And we have fires and floods, which I don't impose on anyone, but we do have a lot of that due to our weather. And we us in our records management space, we use that to our advantage because we've had lots of organisations fully flooded, burnt down, as I mentioned, but also cyclones and hurricanes hit them and things have just gone, to bits, and they haven't been able to be up and running. So yeah, we use it to our advantage. You never ever waste a good crisis, everyone. I'll just put it in perspective. As I said, we don't want them to happen, but don't waste them if they do. Use them to your advantage. I'll move up to trust and credibility. This is so important. When I talk about trust and credibility here in two ways, obviously the information and the data that we're all managing needs to be credible, needs to be authentic, and the ownership and all that and defensible from a disposal point of view. But I'm also talking about building trust in yourself as practitioners or professionals. If people trust you and you know what you're talking about and you're credible, that seat at the table becomes much easier. And that's what I found. So we have a major problem here in Australia about getting what I call the seat at the table. So as I said, at the start of the project, do they always involve the information management people? No. And I think that's because there's not, and I'm not saying that they're not trustworthy, but I don't think they've demonstrated the trust or the credibility or the importance or the value that they bring to the organisation to get the seat at the table. And this is where I said in Australia when you were there, Howard, you need to get out of your office. It's your own fault and do something about it. Right? Stop complaining. Just for those that weren't there, and not most of you, all of you weren't, a lady asked about what could she do to increase the value, and I basically told her that's her own problem, it's her own fault, and she needed to move on and get out there and sell and become trustworthy and credible, not just hope that someone like Rimper or EDMA or Dharma were going to help her do that. That wasn't going to happen. She had to do it herself. So that's what Howard and I keep talking about. So as a trust enabler, we obviously build public confidence from a public confidence point of view, ethical decision making. That's very trendy here in Australia at the moment. I don't know. I'm assuming that from a South African point of view. Investigations and inquiries are happening all the time. And here we have royal commissions here in Australia, and I can categorically tell you that every single royal commission that comes out has a whole chapter on ineffective records or information management, poor governance over records and data. And I'm not seeing them change. It's being ignored still. I think it's sort of the last thing on the what they're going to fix is the last thing. Or again, what I mentioned, they put a lot of money into it right now and they make it look pretty and tell everyone how amazing they are, and then it just stops because it's that non-tangible or sometimes non-tangible, on the profit and loss, Howard. It doesn't have the value to keep up putting the money into it. Yeah. Okay. And I think from a trust point of view, it's really important with this, with AI and any automated systems that we have, the trust continues. I think this is so important that we don't all keep it to ourselves. We educate. And when I say educate with inspiration, we need to make education not so boring. I think we're a little bit boring at, everyone, we say that, you need to learn about how to manage data and records a bit better. And this is what you need to do. And it's all about governance and press the button here and do this and do that. And really it's boring. We need to share and be, it's not about policies. It's not about compliance. It's about what's in it for them. And I think if you can get that message across, what's in it for them, I think they'll, as we all do, we're human, what's in it for us, we start to take a bit of ownership in that space. So it's about, we need to look at skills that will uplift across the organisation and how they can improve. As I said, what's in it for you? We need to be practical and role-based. How often do you go to training and they generically sit there and tell you how to do something and it's got no impact on what you do every day, right? Nothing at all. It's got to be something that, as I said, what's in it for me? And I know this is also not very possible, but if you can do it, and we've tried, we encourage our records and data space, especially when they're working together, to have dedicated educators or trainers that can go around and do a bit of one-on-one stuff, because sitting at someone's desk and explaining how this is how it works for you makes a lot more and is a lot bigger impact than you sitting in a class of 12 people. And I generically stand up in the front and say, well, this is amazing. You need to do it because it's going to help the organisation. Well, you go, yeah, that's great, but what's in it for me, as I keep saying. And as I mentioned, we need to have some more clear pathways for us as IM professionals, both here in Australia. The data space, as I said, is very limiting. And again, the records management space is also limiting, not as much as data. Data's less. And as I said, we have to have confidence, not just be compliant. We need to be confident and passionate about what we do. I have this is another big bugbear of mine. I think that us as information managers, maybe more, I'm going to talk about records people because I can, maybe not so much the data people, but we're really good at going no. No, we say no to everything. We're the no people, right? So, you know, can we manage our information that way? No, got to do it this way. Can we share that with someone? No. And that's what we did, was say no. And no wonder people stopped coming and speaking to us, because all we did was say no, and you had to be compliant. So as I mentioned, as I say on the slide, stop being gatekeepers and start being enablers. We need to be advisors, and I said as in translator, educators and partners, and not the gatekeepers, not the people that say no. Okay, it's really important that we, and that again comes back to trust and credibility in you as well. As I said, if you continue to say, think about if anyone's got children, when you say no to one parent says no, they go to the other parent, right? And then if both say no, they'll try and do it anyway in some instances, right. And they may not. But my point is, how often have we had people, and I've worked in this industry for a long time and implemented new systems, and, you know, try to get rid of what we call shared drives or network drives. I'm not sure what in South Africa how you refer to them, but, you know, just the general shared drive in any organisation that's pretty much a big bucket of stuff. And, you know, we say to them that why don't, if you put it into this system, you can share it with everyone, and you can do a lot more with it. And they'll do everything but use the system that you give them. So they'll actually create a longer process to avoid using the new system, right? Because they don't have the trust, and we don't have the credibility, and they don't understand, and the education hasn't helped them along. So I've really learned a lot over my time in consulting in that space, is that you really do need to, the change management aspect of putting in systems, whether it's AI, whether it's anything, is so important. And you getting that trust and credibility, people by people. I mean, you think about it, whenever you go and buy something of substance, I'm not suggesting something small, but if you go to buy a new bedroom suite or new furniture or whatever, and the person that's selling it to you don't like, I don't know about you guys, but I've just walked out. Even I might love the couch or the sofa, but the person that's trying to sell it, I just don't connect with. So as I said, people by people, and you'll go somewhere else to get something else, because that's what they do. So you need to be the people that they want to buy. Number four, this is
sorry,
yeah, go Howard, sorry.
We had a really troubling governance program that I got involved with. And after a while, I had to lay down a rule that said, you're not allowed to say no unless you can provide an acceptable alternative. So if someone asks you a question and you don't have a good alternative, then you can't just say no. It's not allowed.
Yeah, no, you want them to have a solution, Howard, which is what you're suggesting, a solution.
Yeah.
I hear records managers were so good at just saying no, and they use the compliance stick all the time. And can I be quite blunt? Most people don't give a damn about the compliance, because it actually doesn't impact them directly, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're the CEO or the Director General or the big boss. And even then, can I say, some of them don't really care, because I don't know about you guys, but here there's not necessarily a lot of repercussions depending on the legislation of if you don't do it right. Do you know what I mean? So that all needs to change. And it has changed. It's getting better and better here in Australia. But yeah, we were so good at saying no. But I'm like you, Howard. What's the solution? You may not be able to do it that way, but can we do it another way where it's a win-win for everybody? And that's the importance. This is the big thing we've been talking about all through this presentations about the measurable value. We've got to stop talking, as I mentioned, compliance, and that's the way it's always been done, and legislation says we have to, and that's the policy, and that's the process. Oh, and by the way, the one that I love that I get all the time is that's the way we've always done it. I'm sure you've heard that before too. Like that's we want to change. Oh no, but we've done it like that. Why do you do it that way? Oh, I don't know, because that's the way we've always done it. Some people are actually doing processes and they don't even know why they do it because they've always been taught that's the way you do it, right? And it's an interesting exercise if you can have the opportunity to sit down with people that have always done it that way and actually, you know, plot it out step by step. And I can guarantee you will get rid of some steps, or you'll add some additional influence in there from an information management perspective. Well, the data can now be used for this, where they were, you know, siloed. The data was only being used for that. But hang on a minute, that area can use your data and that area can use your data. And I think that's really important. But we need to talk more in the risk management, risk reduction, efficiency and cost saving space, faster access to information. All of us, we're so impatient these days. I mean, if it takes 2 seconds after I push the button and something doesn't pop up, I'm like, what's going on? Like, I don't know about you guys, but we're all the same, you know, like, aren't we? We expect immediate, you'll push the button and up it pops. That's the expectation these days. Better decisions. So I want to be able to make better decisions with the information, and I want to know it's accurate. And as I mentioned, safer AI and automation overall, because if our information is not credible, AI it's just a tool. It becomes useless. Think about it. Executives don't ask us, is our retention schedule compliant, or is our data, are we keeping the data stuff as long as we need to? They ask, are we exposed? Can we find what we need when we need? Can we trust our systems, and can we use AI safely? These are the questions that executives are asking right now, and that's the space we should be talking in, and that demonstrates the value. Last but not least, I could talk all night, but I won't. I obviously need to sleep at some stage. Communicate with influence. As I mentioned at the start, when I first started in this industry, it was about what I knew from a technical perspective. As I mentioned, no one asked me if I was a good communicator, if I could write well, if I had change management skills, project management. I was probably a bit young to have any of those, but it wasn't part of the role. It wasn't part of the role. And it wasn't part of my boss's role either. They were never asked that. They were asked whether they could understood classification, business classification schemes, retention and disposal schedules, and how to store and manage things effectively. I'm being very basic and fundamental here, but that was pretty much what was asked of records managers at that time. But communication is so important. If we can't communicate, we don't have value. It's as simple as that. We've got to stop using jargon, and we tend to do that a lot. And I'm going to say this, Howard, I think the data industry use it as much as what records people do. You know, you start talking, you know, your data modeling and pools and ponds and you know, and metadata. Yeah, metadata, exactly. And you say that word and people go, what is that, right? And we all know it just flows off our tongues, right? But it doesn't flow off everyone's tongues, and you need to be mindful of that. It's really important. You think about it, as soon as someone starts talking, it's like someone talking another language, you turn off because you're just not interested, because you can't. You're not interested because you can't understand. So stop using jargon, be more outcome based, and in that way, as I said, speak risk and trust and value. And we need to tailor our messages again. I think we're very, we're not, even at RIMPA, we do it too. We try and tailor our messages where, you know, at different levels. So there's a different message for the executives as there are from the legal perspective, there's the operational perspective. And I'm sure you all have that in your organisation. You have to tailor your messaging to suit the audience. And no different to when you're standing up in front of people talking, we communicate. You need to tailor and speak to your audience. And I don't know if we're all very good at that. So I think it's really important. And IAM influence grows when the language shifts from when we stop talking that policy compliance to the impact. So important. How is this going to impact what's in it for you, or what's in it for me? And I mentioned this earlier as when we did the organisational, the knowledge about your organisation, about how important it is to align information management with us as a strategic voice. It's really important that if you can, one thing, if I can give you one tip, is to align anything that you do in that data, records or IM space with the overall organisational strategic plan, because you will get much more buy-in if you do it that way than trying to go rogue. We probably want to go rogue at times because we have a different direction and we want to go, you know, we want to put in all these new systems because that's going to do it what we want to do it that way. But the organisation's saying going in a different direction. Follow the direction of the organisation because you'll always get resources and money. I'm talking both people and money, more so than if you try and go rogue and say, because of compliance and because the organisation down the road's doing it that way, we need to do it that way. That's not going to work. But as I'm also mentioned, you should have a strategic voice and be at the table for anything to do with anything digital transformation, anything AI, anything governance and risk and public accountability. It's no longer, and I really mean this, it's no longer an option. It's not a nice to have. It's not that intangible area down the back. Data and records management is so important to any organisation. And I really stress that. And I know I'm talking to the converted, but if I can give you any information or any content that allows you to talk that and sell that to your business, I hope that's what I can do today. I'm a bit of a sell here, but I don't mean to. There is a whole ebook series on those 5 knowledge areas that I just spoke about that is available via Rimper. It's really cheap. I don't know the rand, but it's less than 400 rand. So just so you know, because what you said before, when you said it was about 20 miles, I think it's around that price. Is there any questions? I'm going to stop sharing, Howard, so I can see more people on the screen, if you don't mind.
And I have several questions, but I'd love to give other people a chance to ask some questions.
Sure.
Let me ask Rob Jackson. I know you've got a few questions. You were also talking about, you sent an email earlier on today talking about, I can't remember the name, blueprints or any questions from your side, Rob?
I think part of what Blueprints does, and I'm not selling either, it's just I've found the connection between the problems that people have in the technology space, and the difference between what they do and how comfortable they are in the technology space and how uncomfortable they are in the sort of business space. Sorry, that's my wife throwing the toys out of the cot.
Who are they, Rob? When we say they, who are you referring to?
So I work with an organization called Blueprints, and it's just very simple, www.blueprints.coza. And they've done a lot of work in terms of, I'm going to say, effectively breaking down silos.
Yep.
And getting silos to collaborate with one another for a common good.
Yep, which is great.
And that's what they've done with a lot of organizations in terms of a system they implement, which is not a one-off. It's actually a monitored system in terms of the progress that's being made, the difficulties that are being encountered and stuff like that as well. So I've worked, like Howard has, in a lot of very, very big organizations, IBM being one of them, and totally frustrated with the people guarding their own silos, their own data, their own whatever. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And the world we're working in today actually calls for more collaboration all the time than we're actually doing, had in the past, let alone the fact we couldn't do it in the past. So I don't know. That's kind of...
Does it work on an information asset register sort of approach, which is like having a register to understand? Like here in Australia, we've got lots of systems that do the same thing. So when you create these registers, you understand that, you know, you've got multiple systems collecting information and data about the same thing because they've gone rogue, obviously. And the register sort of highlights that. Is that what that what Blueprint? No.
No, it's not related to data or records for that from that point of view. It's actually creating data that's a reflection of what the company thinks they need to do to achieve the purpose.
So it's actually, it starts off building the collaboration on the vision and the purpose, and then they collect a lot of data from the feedback as to how people are feeling and how, you know, how they're moving in those different areas. So they're using data to understand the progress of getting to work together, and it's across anything. It's a really good change management instrument and measurement of change. I think it's fantastic. Because I've always battled to measure change.
Yeah, I like it. Sorry, Howard. I like it because it's inclusive.
Yep.
So people don't feel they're being dictated to about what they should do and what they know and whatever. So it gives everybody in the organization a chance to say what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and what new stuff they should be doing.
Yeah.
So
And
if
the
I-
inclusive word is the key,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, a sense
So
of
we-
ownership.
We've got another question from Shane and then William. And Shane asks, what's typically the most senior title in an organization for an IM professional? The records manager is the one that I came up with, but I was thinking
No.
CDO, CD.
No, they have the Chief Information Officer. So that's direct, which is usually takes in the IT and the IM space. So it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Chief Information, but the highest probably from a direct, say, data records management, but would be a director. There's quite a few. We have quite a few members that are deemed what we call directors. So they're about, in a public sector, about third down from the top level.
So you are saying the CIO, is that correct, or is it
CIO,
CIO?
Chief Information
Yeah,
Officer.
okay.
So in the part of the C-suite is
Okay.
the probably, and we have CIOs that have either got IT experience or IM experience, not necessarily
Okay.
both. That's the problem. But
Okay.
they manage both. That so
Right,
they have
right.
both underneath. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you. Shane, I'm hoping that answered your question. I'm sure it does.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, my experience is my CIOs are IT professionals and get lumbered with information management, or their information management leaders who are incredibly light on the IT technical side. And that's why the standard joke is they last for 3 years, right, before they get moved on. So, and even then I see the CIOs really sitting at the top table. They tend to be, tier 3 behind somebody else.
Okay.
So, I was just trying to triangulate whether that's just my experience in big organizations or whether, the information management professional was now getting a seat at the true top table of the organization.
They are, Shane. It's getting much better. As I said, if you've got that, especially if you've got that title of director, you are definitely getting a seat at the table. From a CIO perspective here in the public sector, primarily they directly report to the CEO, so they're one down. Depending on their skill set, I must admit. But yeah, you're right. We as I said, we're either seeing them with an IT background or with an information management background, not necessarily both, but they do manage both. And this is the problem. You're right. And if whichever one they favour seems to get the most money.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well. So I just want to make sure it wasn't only me. Thank you.
No.
William? We can't hear you, William. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
No.
Okay.
No, he's gone.
Maybe once William's there, and the one thing that really hit home to me was the situation of any AI system that's providing advice, be it a chatbot. And one of the first things that hit me was that it's now being recognized as an entity, and if it gives advice, it's giving advice on behalf of the organization, so it can be held accountable.
Correct.
So you can't just say, "Oh, it was a chatbot, and I don't need to worry about it." It's now really important. But the other thing that struck me was every conversation that it has is a vital record.
Yep.
So if it's giving you and it's telling you and it's answering your questions, it's generating vital records. And that's what I love about this whole thing. It's now pulled records management or information management right into that thing. Is they've got to be monitoring the tone, the quality, the advice that's been given.
Absolutely.
And they've got to be checking these things out. They cannot ignore it and deal with it as a past tense. They're in trouble if they don't.
Think about this, Howard. Like, I'm going to go back many, many years ago. So forget about AI and even forget about chatbots. If people wanted to ask an organisation some questions, they would most likely ring, or write to them, right?
Yes.
To write to the organisation and say, you know, can I do this, or is this available, or you know, what's the process? We would, in the traditional sense, they would write in, whether it's an email or whether it was a hard copy letter, forget about the format. Records people would collect that, open it, they would classify it, they would put it on file, and they would send it to you, Howard, to deal with as the action officer. What's the difference? And it was kept as a record in those days. So it's a chatbot is just another format of doing the same thing, but we're not keeping those records. We're not keeping the data. We're maybe keeping the data because obviously a chatbot works on how many times the question's asked and I frequently ask questions and that sort of thing and how it's going to respond. But we're not keeping the response as a record. And we all had conversations with chatbots that, you know, but that's not helping me. I want to know this, that sort of thing. Yeah, you're spot on. And that's just one example, Howard, of where it's not even recognised as a record or even as data. Let's be honest.
And what we found, and I'm sure you've seen that, is the case of how quickly these guys can get into the head of that chatbot and start getting it to create toxic responses.
Yes.
And whereas we didn't really have that problem with the old human response, that, you know, now it's a case of we've got to be monitoring real time that we're not going toxic.
And we're not doing it. And we'd let technology, I say we, and I'm saying collectively we in the IM space, we let technology run over us and we don't catch up, right? So records managers need to have a real good look at themselves with email, right? So email came out and we were told, well, not we, but the world was told, I'm going to say, that it was just a communication that you and I would say hi to each other, right? And it became a business tool, right? Records managers at the time, or information managers, we didn't run that wave. We didn't ride the wave until after the fact when it became a business tool. We're still to this day trying to catch up on the best way to capture emails as records, right? And we still don't do that well. So it's just an example of how technology gets away from us. I'm not suggesting that we're going to be amazing and be in front of technology all the time, because that's just not possible. But we need to stay abreast with it a lot better than we have in the previous years. So.
Now, Anne, you did talk a lot about knowledge management, and I've really found that more and more fascinating in terms of we need, you know, I just love to see the fact that when we interact with chatbot, when we interact with ChatGPT, how much it learns and how much it remembers, and surely this is something that knowledge is being captured, and it's a way of remembering and harnessing it and working with it. And I'm not sure if you operate or focusing in that area in terms of how do we bring, yes, we've always got a human in the loop and we'll divert to them, but surely our knowledge should be becoming part of that sort of change from the tacit to that the one in between, explicit or implicit. We've got to manage that.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up knowledge management, because can I say, I'm going to be quite honest with you, when it was all a bit of a buzzword about 15, 20 years ago, and I thought really, and I don't think anyone had a tool, or really, we talked about it, but I don't think anyone really knew how to capture knowledge. I think now we're in the space, in this AI space, of being able to capture it, and I think knowledge management now is trendy. I think it was just a trendy thing to say 20 years ago. Now I think it actually is real. I think we're still, sorry, how to explain, we're still realizing this, Howard. I don't think we've got the answers, I'll be quite honest with you, but I think that it's becoming, I don't think we should ignore knowledge management. I don't know about you guys in South Africa, but here in Australia, it was trendy. We had knowledge managers in every organisation. It then lost its trendiness, and we lost and we lost those people that I think actually knew, but we didn't have, as I said, we didn't have the tools to do it. Those tools are now here. And I'm worried that we're starting back from scratch again to build that knowledge base up. So I don't have the answer, but that's my concern.
Okay, so we finally got William. He typed it out, so I'm going to try and read it and hopefully I can make sense. And he's asking how we. So he wanted to share how we had to work with records management and information architecture in the construction of the nuclear power plant. Millions of lifetime quality records required and properly signed off, or the plant cannot go live. thus data and records were tightly coupled, and we learned a number of key things and implemented these things to ensure quick but trusted records. Lots of workflow mapping into knowledge using ITIL and information asset management.
Yep. Well, that's a great story, William. That's what we're all trying to aim for. I think that's what is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I believe that's what he's suggesting.
Yeah, and ITIL is something that we both from a data records IT perspective we can all use. So it's pertinent, it's relevant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
no, that's a great story. That's something I'd be sharing a bit more, William, if you could. Not necessarily today, but I'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
That's probably a webinar in its own right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe just the last couple of questions before Anne falls asleep. Any other questions? Michelle?
No, I'm good, Howard. The
Okay.
one question that I actually thought of as Anne was presenting the way of measuring value was how do we practically measure value? But at the end of the day, I also answered myself because so I was actually thinking the other mistake that we make in information management, for example, is where we measure value by just saying the value that we've added is the percentage of data elements that have been classified. But to me, that is basically maturity just from a tick box kind of exercise. However, the one way that you could actually show value when it comes to classifying your data is the percentage of data elements that have been classified and have triggered access controls. Right. I think that's something to think about in the room in terms of practically showing value out of and also showing value that matters or relates to the strategy.
Right.
Mahali, we also practically show value about if you lost that data or lost those records, right? So how much the value, what does it cost you? What does it cost the organisation not to have them? And what does it cost the organisation to actually reinvent them? That was part of my experience with Bankstown City Council. The value of information became far more because they understood how much it cost to resurrect it or to bring it back. But more important, what was the loss to the organisation if they did lose their payroll? I'm just going to use that as a simple example. If they lost all their payroll data, what was the cost of the organisation? They had no employees. They couldn't function. They couldn't operate. And what was their loss per day? And it became a true value. So I'm just giving you, there are some formulas out there in the wide world, which I'm happy to share that I've got a couple of that you can use that are more practical. But in that sense, yes. And they can be used in the data, the record. It doesn't matter as an information space.
Yeah. And I can also get James Price. I've got his book and we are talking. So if there's interest from the team, we can get James Price to share with us as well. So
he's worthwhile having a webinar, Howard, on that actual topic. It's worthwhile listening to. Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Rob Jackson.
Yes, it's me again. What I found in reading William's example, which I think is probably what everybody else saw, is the fact that it's a nuclear power plant. So the governance around a nuclear power plant must be incredibly high and stuff like that. And why is it not against many other industries? Maybe not all, I can't think of, but medical industry, the transport industry. I mean, they all have life and death, whatever the right word is, attributes.
Consequences.
Thank you. So I'm just thinking, why isn't the governance not there to kind of at the same level as it is in the nuclear power plants? Am I dreaming? Probably, but
no. I think you're spot on, Rob. I think that's really pertinent. I think that's important. Absolutely, I agree. Sorry, Howard.
Rob, just to share with you, when I worked for the central bank in South Africa, we and they regulators, right? So they just do this, do this, do this, and if you don't do it, I'm going to fine you. That's their view. So they were almost dictators to the banking system. And we had to spend a long time talking to them about, what is the consequence? And we were very lucky in a way. And we lost one of the banks. The banks spent a whole lot of money and it lost all of the people's investments, and it was gone. And that pension fund, all the investments were gone for everybody. And it affected a lot of our poorer people. And we said, can you see the importance of looking after things, the impact that you can prevent our citizens, so you can stop them from losing all their investments, all their savings. And if you couldn't relate it to the role that they had, the purpose that they were living in, then it was just noise and it didn't apply. And we had to work hard on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're right, Rob. You're spot on. Why isn't it as important as the nuclear plant? It should be.
Yeah.
Agree.
But we've got to find, as Anne, we've got to find a way of telling the story that makes them see it. And if we don't, then they just keep on doing the things they do.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. The trust, you've got to be credible, communicate, educate, all of what I've just said. Absolutely. It all ties in.
You've got to tell the CEO the story.
You do. Yep. And telling the story is the important thing. You've got stories. You've got to tell the story. And it is a story.
And you can tell
him. You just keep pounding.
Does he want
you just
to be
keep telling the same
villain?
Story. You just keep telling it, and believe me, you just keep repeating yourself. Eventually, it's like any marketing. You got to tell the story 3 times before anyone even thinks about it, and then they start to absorb it after that. So treat your executive exactly the same way.
And I wanted to ask you another question on have you seen SFIA, which is the skills framework for the information age? And they've got, and I think they do reference records managers. They do call it the information management, and there's the technical knowledge, and then there are 4 other areas: business knowledge, acumen, they refer to it, influence, and things like that. And they force you to look at a lot more than just your technical understanding. Right? Have you linked that in a way to what you're doing?
Yes, we have. And we're based, because we have a certification program at RIMPA, which is based on technical and what I'm going to call soft skills. And we've used both the National Archives of Australia have what they call competency skills, which is based on the SFIA, and we've based it as well. So yeah, there's a definite connection there. How it definitely, absolutely.
Yeah, so anybody, that skills framework is available. It's open. So if you want to download it, you can certainly check where you are and what level you can operate at.
Yep.
And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute thrill. I love the opportunity, and I hope that we'd love to invite you all to come to Australia one day and come and meet with us and attend RIMPA Live. And thank you for the promotion, Howard, which was great. But yeah, and maybe one day I can come to South Africa. So that's probably more of a chance to have that happen, Howard, than all of you come to my way, because as I mentioned, if those that weren't online, we do have a relationship with Kenya, so not that far away. If you're going to go that far, I may as well keep going. So but yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very
William,
much.
we'd love to see you. We really would. Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you so much.
I'm now going to go to bed.
You need to.
Sweet dreams.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.